for us? Thank you. All right, we've got the committee is all here, so I will call us to order at 7:01 p.m. Welcome, everyone. First up is commendations. Does anybody have any commendations? I have a commendation. All right. David, your last meeting with us.
I'm gonna make this short and sweet because I'm very good with goodbyes. But first of all, I want to thank you for your service on the committee for the past 7 years, past 4 that I've been lucky enough to serve with you. It's definitely been an interesting ride, to say the least. Some real highs and some lows that go along with it, but you and I don't necessarily always agree on the topics, but I feel like I always appreciate your perspective and you just bring a different lens to every school committee issue that we have to deliberate here. And I think at the end of the day, we end up with a better solution and result because of that. Obviously, your biggest legacy is the Lucretia and Joseph Brown Elementary School. I think your leadership on that project delivered a state-of-the-art learning facility that this community is going to be able to enjoy for decades to come. So I hope you are immensely proud of that accomplishment and everything else that you've contributed to Marblehead over the past 7 years on the school committee. What was it, a decade or so on the finance committee? So I'm proud to have served with you, and I think personally, you and I probably would have never met had we not served in the school committee together. And although your time on the committee is coming to an end, I consider you a good friend, and I'm sure that will continue. So,
very much. Thank you very much for that.
Well, I've got some words too, somewhat similar. So we've come a long way. Our first year on the committee together was a bit rocky at times. That we did not usually agree. But I too am very grateful that we can hold different viewpoints outside of the meetings and then work together with the district administration to understand what is best for student achievement. And even when we don't end up quite on the same page, we're usually in the same chapter at this point, which is great. And so, each year has had its craziness, but I so appreciate the work that we have accomplished together. My fondest memory will always be working with you and Bill on the finance director search, finding Michelle Costa or finding us. It was so clutch to moving the district forward. And I learned many things from you and Bill in that search, and it made me a better committee member. Obviously, like Megan said, your crowning achievement was overseeing the building committee and getting the new ground school open last fall. And so I just want to thank you for all your hard work over the last 7 years and all of the tasks that you undertook and accomplished. I hope that you enjoy all the free time that you're about to get. A little jealous. And I look forward as well to just simply being your friend going forward. So thank you so much for your service.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have words.
Absolutely.
Mine aren't written. But we've spent a lot of time together, not necessarily here in the school committee, but on the building committee, which is
We did.
years now. And that was an amazing experience to work under you as the chairperson. And we will all miss you and everything that these ladies said. So thank you for
Ditto.
No, but thank you for serving the Marblehead community in the way that you have. Being a volunteer is a hard position, and you've done it with grace. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And
I think Sarah's got something
Sarah?
to say too.
absolutely. Good evening, Sarah.
Hi, David. I think anybody that is willing to throw their hat in and to do all the work that is required for this should be commended. It's, a lot of time, and the amount of time that you have put into the building is huge. I think it's fitting today that I bumped into Gene photographing the building today for his portfolio. So I hope you get one of those photographs and you can mat it and frame it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you to, as Dr. Bucky would say, the good people of Marblehead for having this opportunity to serve for the last 7 years and represent the townspeople, the students, the families, and most importantly, the great team of administrators and educators that we have here in Marblehead. I knew a little bit about it with Ryan, having my one son gone through 12 years at Marblehead, but certainly being on the school committee, I learned a lot of different perspectives about different areas that maybe Ryan wasn't involved in or I wasn't directly aware of. And so that was certainly enlightening. And it was all about just trying to move Marblehead schools forward in some small way and support that effort. And so I want to thank the effort that gets put forth every day. And we certainly saw that during the pandemic, where I think our teachers and administrators were leaders during a very challenging time, and the students as well, had to adapt to the challenges. And I think it just speaks volumes to, the commitment and dedication. And I'm glad to have played some small part or small role during that process. Certainly, I appreciate the comments about the building committee, but as we know, we had a committee at times that was 20 people, comprised of over 20 people, great subcommittees, lots of discussions, debates. And then when we got into construction, people just put their heads down and, did what needed to be done. So I want to thank all of the, the good people on that committee, from, the vice chair, Ralph Wallace, to Cindy Schieffer, Ben Berman, Cindy, how I met Sarah, you came onto the building committee before the school committee. So that's how I met Sarah, and, RDA left field, just really good. Yeah. Friendships and memories abound there. And then, to the left of me, last but not least, I agree. I think for me, Bill McAuliffe was sort of a changing moment. I've been on the committee for 3 years. Bill came in as our interim. I learned so much from Bill. He was a mentor to me, even though he was our superintendent. I really valued his experience, and we did, as I think as a committee, learned so much from him in that short period of time, over a year. And so I want to thank Bill McAuliffe for all that he did to, help me as a school committee member, and as you say, finding Michelle, and of course, hired Dr. Bucky. That was the last step in the process. And for the last 2 years, I want to thank Dr. Bucky for the relationship that we've developed, and the openness that you've given me, and always been there, when there's been questions, discussing issues, and getting the Brown School, the last 2 years when you came on board, finalizing the Brown School project. So it's been a great ride. So thank you, everyone. And I'll be around. I'm going to find something to keep me busy, and hopefully if the townspeople are good enough to pass Article 1 and we need to put a new roof on the high school and I have some spare time, I'd be happy to, help out where I can in that area. So thanks. Thank you, everybody. And I was going to start out, but I sort of got caught up in all of the commendations. But, I need to thank my son Ryan, and my wife Ellen for allowing me the time. I mean, everybody knows we all have families, and Thursday nights and phone calls in the car, phone calls on Saturdays, whatever it is. I mean, Ryan saying, "Oh, another meeting tonight." But, I will say, there was a lot of flexibility there, and didn't miss out on, important events. But, thanks to Ryan, thanks to Ellen for being there and supporting me, and help, allowing me to have all the time that I needed to commit to the committee. Because without them, it wouldn't have been as fun a ride as it's been for the last 7 years. So thank you.
Thank you, David. All right, Yasin, it's a hard act to follow, sorry. But we will turn it over to you for our final student representative update of the school year.
Yeah, things have winded down a bit in the past couple of weeks, but I still have a couple of things left for the end of the year. On June 3rd was graduation for all our seniors. It was a great event. Glad to see everybody happy, and congrats to all the seniors. June 6th was the senior sunrise for the incoming senior class. You may have heard them in the morning. I know. June 7th was the underclassmen award ceremony. It's a great event, lots of awards. I want to congratulate everyone who won an award. June 8th, the freshmen had bio MCAS, and everyone is now done with MCAS. So that's awesome. The Juneteenth flag raising ceremony was on June 9th and featured quite a few MHS students. And we will have no school on Monday in honor of Juneteenth. On June 13th was the National Green School Society induction. Today, Latin Club took a field trip to middle school to do some activities with the Latin students. All classes also elected new class officers over the past couple of weeks. I want to congratulate all the new officers as well. And the 23rd will be the last day for us, and the 24th will be the last day for all the staff.
Oh, so close, so close. Well, thank you very much, and we appreciate all of the updates that you've given us this year, and we look forward to having you back next year. And it's your senior year next year, right? All right, so we're thrilled to get you back for one more year.
Yeah, thanks for everything.
And if I may, I think we got caught up with Dave, and I really wanted to commend Yasin. He had some pretty big shoes to fill. I think it's safe to say we were all so impressed with everything Dan had always brought to the table, but you have not disappointed, Yasin, and you have filled those shoes, and you bring a lot of information to the table, and I am eternally grateful for all your updates.
Thank you.
And Sarah, through the chair, if I could read a quick prepared statement.
Just
About Yasin
Yasin,
or going back?
No, going back to the next agenda.
Just hold on a second.
I just wanted to say to Yasin, I'm trying to remember when I saw you in town, if this was related to spring break, but were you going to Bulgaria this summer, or was that spring break? This summer. You're headed to Bulgaria. Exactly. And how long will that be?
2 weeks.
2 weeks? Well, safe travels and
Yeah, have fun, yeah.
great
Yeah.
trip up to Bulgaria. Enjoy.
Good luck finishing up the end of your school year.
Thank you.
All right, we will see you in the fall,
See you in the
Yasin.
fall.
Thank you.
Have a good
guys.
Summer.
You too.
All
Can I
right.
make my summer plans feel like tiny?
So that, Sarah, did you want to speak before public comment?
If you're okay with that.
Yeah, can we ask about what?
It's about, I would like to make a comment in regards to a letter that was submitted to be read during public comment. An email was submitted by one of the school committee's members' husbands, which claimed I had been verbally abusive to his wife and attacked his children. I just wanted to note that this is not an accurate depiction of the conversation I initiated as a professional courtesy to convey my feelings that my review was not accurately depicted and including the summative superintendent review. In past years, it was requested I address my concerns to these matters prior to the meeting, and I felt that that was what I was doing. I find this to be politically motivated and inappropriate, and I would like to move on with the agenda as scheduled and welcome anyone with questions or concerns to reach out to me at any time outside of the meeting. Thank you.
So I do have that piece under the correspondence aspect, so we'll just kind of leave it there until the end of the meeting. So that does move us on to public comment. And so anyone who would like to make public comment, please use the raise hand function. Anybody in our audience who would like to make public comment, just actually raise your hand. And then I would ask you to come to the front and state your name and address for the record. Nicole Cohen.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah. Yes, we can. Sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you, David Harris, for your work. I regardless of how anybody feels about one's position in the school committee, it is a time-consuming and thankless job, so thank you. I'm not sure, this might kind of follow along with what Sarah Fox was saying. I did have a couple of questions. One, when discussing the budget and other heated discussions, if the school committee endorses an F politeness policy, as sometimes happens in private schools, and if what happens in school committee should stay in the school committee meetings, or if the school committee does not believe in an F politeness policy. Second, when talking about the superintendent's review, I don't see anywhere that the school committee is addressing declining enrollment and teacher staff leaving in abundance. It seems to me that if you have students and staff leaving, they're very unhappy with the situation. And I have yet to see this matter discussed by schools committee. We had a population in 2017 of 3,100 students. And in 2022, we had 2,600 students. Never have I heard or seen the school committee reach out to understand why we are losing teachers and staff. So again, my questions are, if an F politeness policy is in place, so we know how to proceed in the meetings tonight, and if you're going to address declining enrollment and teachers leaving. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Great, I don't have any other hands raised, so I will move us along to the consent action items. First up, we have the approval to declare vision equipment as surplus. Michelle, I will just kind of dish to you. We had a lengthy memo outlining that. Any highlights that you wanted?
Did. Yes, just recently we have become aware that the Massachusetts Department of Public Health has recommended the basically discontinued use of vision testing machines in our schools for all age groups. And we currently have 6 vision machines on hand. They range in value from roughly, we've found them from $120 up to $250, maybe depending on the model, not quite sure. But due to having some value, we need to declare them surplus and then offer them to the highest bidder, basically, who's willing to sell them. Well, whether that be through a website, eBay, something like that, we will see how we can dispose of them. But first, we need school committee to declare those as surplus. And I did attach the Massachusetts Department of Public Health guidelines, which basically outlines what the new protocol will be going forward.
So I will just ask for the motion, and then people can ask any questions. So I'll ask for a motion to declare 6 Optech 2000 vision tester machines as surplus goods.
So moved.
Megan moved.
Seconded.
Sarah. All right, any questions? Okay. I know you have some.
The memo was very long and there was a lot of information in there, which, I'm sure is very useful to the nurses, but just trying to understand, and I just more clarify my understanding that we don't need to purchase then new machines.
Correct. They're going to a protocol which involves charts and graphs and hard material, printed materials, and not machines necessarily for vision screening for all age groups.
That DESE will provide. What do we need to purchase?
I do not know that answer.
But they will be provided.
But it would not be a machine, so it would be not a substantial cost.
Okay. And they are going to provide the training to our staff.
I believe so, yes.
At a no charge basis.
Yeah, Deanna has been on top of
Okay.
this change.
Deanna fully supports.
Yes.
I just am trying to make sure that I understand too, like, are we going to have additional costs as a result of that, and what would it look like?
So the way I'm understanding it is that basically these machines are not like the machines that you go to in the eye doctor's office. They're more like the DMV we're moving away from that and more to almost like the eye doctor's office with the chart and then
Yes.
the declining size letters.
Exactly. That's how I understand.
Sarah?
Yeah, and if the nurses are saying that they don't utilize these and don't need these, they know far better, I think, than we do.
Just trying to make sure we all understand.
Yeah, and I think it just is good for the public to know too, that they're not taking the eye assessments
Right,
away.
away.
It's just changing how they're assessing.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that memo kind of went into detail about how important those are.
Yes.
And actually, it sounds like they feel like it will identify more problems where they're missing problems right now.
Yes. That is the reason for the change.
Wonderful. Any other questions? All right, then I will call a roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Sarah Fox,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Megan Taylor, and Emily Barron. All right, that passes 5-0. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Deanna. Great. Next up is minutes, but it has been a crazy week, so we actually did not have any minutes in our packet this week. We'll have one last meeting next week to clear up a few last minute business items. And so if Lisa can get those done, they'll be on there. Otherwise, they will go up as drafts until we meet for the summer retreat. All right. John, that moves us to the superintendent's report with district updates.
Sure. In your packet was a list of retirees that we will be recognizing. We have 10 staff across the district, and that includes cafeteria workers, custodians, administrative assistants, teachers, tutors. And so I thought it would be nice for the committee to have a brief bio on each of the people that are retiring. And thanks to Lisa in my office, I don't know if our tech people can pick this up, but we'll be sharing with people these glass apples as the recognition of their service to the Marblehead Public Schools. So that memo is in, and we want to thank them for their service to Marblehead, some for an extended period of time. And so, again, it includes everything from director of food service to custodians, and some have retired in the middle of the year or during the year this year. And there's one on there that will be retiring in October of next year. So those are the retirements for this year.
And all their dedication to the district and all the hard work that they've put in. Yeah, it's a great list. It was lovely to read through.
And then an update on the METCO director search. I think Julia Ferreira, who has stepped in the interim to support the METCO program as kind of the interim director, working with Lindsay Page at the high school for the secondary piece and Carla Rose at the elementary school. We had a screening meeting this afternoon, and Julia summed it up best. She said, we need to go slow to go fast. And so we posted this position on April 27th. We then went into the METCO Inc. office on May 5th, and we solicited some input from families at that time. And they talked about the historical structure that had changed that they thought could be contributing to some of the issues that we've been facing in finding a more permanent director. So we've worked with METCO on the job description. That has, again, been posted since April 27th. We attended the new student meet and greet on May 17th to meet new families and to talk to them about the METCO search. We held another parent meeting via Zoom on June 7th. DESE sponsored a job fair and recruiting candidates of color. So we have been participating in that. We established the search committee, which has representation from METCO Inc. It has Emily Barron as a representative. Dan Bauer is the administrator rep. We did that screening meeting today. We're going to do more focused outreach in Boston. Monique, who is the PCO rep for the parents, is going to connect us with the Boys and Girls Club in Boston. And so we're having another meeting next week to talk about next steps in that search.
Any questions for John on that one? Thanks for the update. Great. Thank you for the update.
Yes, yeah, I did ask you to remind me. We do have two hires. We have hired a food service director for the district, and that is John Constantino. And we'll have him on an agenda either at the retreat this summer or at the first meeting in September. And then Mr. Bauer has announced that he made final selection for the assistant principal at high school, and that is an internal candidate, Lindsay Donaldson. And so she will take Lindsay Page spot as an assistant principal at Marblehead High School.
Congratulations to both of them. Yeah.
It's great.
Lindsay has been on the SAC as I've been there for the high school, and she's a really valued asset there. And she was very instrumental in developing. She was one of the staff who worked to develop the Magic Block. Took that on, so I'm sure she's gonna make a great step up for her, and she's valued staff member already. So
Absolutely.
wonderful, great updates. All set with you?
Good.
Okay, wonderful. So that will lead us on to the finance and organizational support aspect of our meeting. First up, we have the FY23 stipends proposal. There was a slide presentation that we put into the folder for everyone. I'll kind of dish to Michelle. Do you want to take that, or can tag team?
I'll just jump in. The MEA approved this unanimously at their meeting on June 14th on Tuesday. And so this was a tremendous amount of effort and a long road to get to the final product. And I really appreciate how they put the presentation for you together in red so that you can see where the changes were and how we were able to come up with the new fee structure, not only for coaches, but for co-curricular advisors and team leaders. So turn to Michelle.
Yes, so basically it was a very long process. We had allocated a total cost of $65,000 for all the adjustments for FY23. We came in just below that, and so it's very successful. And we dealt with a lot of inconsistencies. For example, some of the clubs and advisory positions started out very small, as for example the AP testing. Very small program. It is now a very large program. So we made some adjustments in the program stipends for those. And basically everyone is getting at least a cost of living increase. And going forward, the cost of living increase will apply to these stipends as well, beginning in FY24. So that proposal is, and as Dr. Bucky said, it was approved by the MEA, and just hope we will approve it this evening, and we can move forward and start with a great new stipend proposal for the new year. All right.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I think that's an important piece of this because often club and activity advisors go long periods of time before an adjustment. And so working with MEA to put the cost of living or the negotiated agreement as applying to those, I think is a really nice outcome of this process.
Let me ask for a motion quickly, and then we'll go to questions. So can I have a motion to approve the stipend adjustments for FY23? So moved. Megan moved.
Sarah seconded.
Thanks, Sarah. Sarah second. All right, Sarah, I know you had a question.
No, I was just going to say that I think that this is a really important step. I mean, I know anybody that's been keeping up with local news sees that what Lynn just did for all of their staff, getting them up to a higher level to not only compensate their staff appropriately, but one of the reasons was to attract talent to in a teacher shortage and a staff shortage to come work there. So I think that's a good this is a good step into evaluating where we are in the regional pay scale. And I just hope that we can continue to kind of explore and make sure that we're doing, that we're in line with what other districts in the area are doing.
Yeah.
Can you just, so how does a coach go through the steps? Is it just years as a coach?
Yes, exactly. So the steps represent years of experience as a coach. So they'll start at 1 if they have no coaching experience. If they do, we'll place them higher.
Okay.
And they just go up until they reach the maximum step. But they then will still get the cost of living increase that will now be built.
Thank you for all your work on this,
Yeah.
Michelle and John and
Yeah, I know you guys have all been working on it for quite some time, so I'm happy to be voting.
It seemed almost an impossible task back in November, December. So I'm glad we came to a great resolution.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay. All right, I will call for a vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Sarah Fox,
Yes.
David Harris,
Yes.
Megan Taylor, and Emily Barron. All right, so that passes 5-0. I am going to table the FY23 user and lunch fees today. User fees sounds like there are not going to be proposed changes, and the lunch fees we're going to bring back next week in hopes that we'll get a little more clarification from the federal government on federal funding before we actually have to discuss with,
Yes.
our rates.
We may actually even want to hold that till our retreat. this
Okay.
summer,
Okay.
Depending if we learn anything new in the next week.
All right. Sounds good. And just let me know. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but didn't they last year kind of wait to announce they were extending the program? They didn't give us a ton of notice on that, did they?
Correct. They did not. And they're stating that they're not going to continue the program, but there's an opportunity that they might possibly. So I would hate to set them incorrectly and then find out we have free meals again. So I think the summer might be a better time.
You just let us know when you would like us to look at it and if. All right, next up is the schedule of bills. So that was in the packet. Can I get a motion to approve the identified schedule of bill totaling $769,068.88?
So moved.
Megan moved,
Seconded?
Sarah second. Any questions on any of those? All right, roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Sarah Fox,
Yes.
David Harris.
Yes.
Megan Taylor.
Yes.
And Emily Barron.
Yes.
Great, that passes 5-0 as well.
I-
Did you have a
If I
question?
could, through the chair, this is just under finance and organizational support. It's not specifically itemized, but there was the email, Michelle, that recently came from Desi that provided a link to be able for the different towns to see, the ESSER funds and different grants. And we've received the updates from you and we're done with one, we're done with two, and we have the ESSER 3 funds that go through 2024.
Correct. Yes.
So I think that was good to see. And I just, I think it's for this committee and how those, if maybe they're going to change the guidelines of those funds, how they're going to be spent, or if they'll remain the same. But do we have any immediate plans right now, or are we just sitting tight to, see what might come up as we go into the summer and next year?
For the majority of it, we're sitting tight. We are spending a little bit of the funding on addressing some learning loss, some summer programming, small amounts of money. We're not spending, a significant amount of that grant just yet. So we're kind
Right.
of holding tight and seeing what happens.
So I think that is worth noting, right? The last ESSER 3 portion of it did need to be retained for learning loss,
Yes.
right? So that can be applied to, say, some summer programming, as you mentioned, different things like that.
Yes.
I believe other portions of it had to be retained for mental health
Yes.
support.
Yeah,
Yeah. Social.
No, it's-
emotional.
I think it's been really a good use of funds, I think all the way through. As we went through the pandemic and identified the immediate needs. And I think it's really been good that we've not jumped to go ahead and spend the money. And now there will be these, I guess, residual needs that might come up in the next couple of years. And there's still a good amount of money there for us to use and get advice from on the best way to spend those within the district. So great. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Can we at a future meeting get some type of data from the assessments that might speak to the learning loss or any possible regression? Because that will really help us to guide where we might want to earmark some of those funds more to address that stuff. I think if we can see the data of what did and did not happen, I know we all have big picture ideas or big ideas of what we think happened, but if we can just see that data in a future presentation, that would be great.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so that moves us on to our school committee portion. First up within this is the superintendent summative evaluation. So I'm going to dish to Emily because she and Lisa were the ones that we tasked with taking that on. And so I will let you open this
Yes,
conversation.
Emily.
So I just wanted to explain how the process went for creating the summative document. So the process was extensive and comprehensive. We tabulated each goal and then each standard, and decided on what the rating would be based on a majority of the committee as stated in the MASC's evaluating the superintendent document. Although we took it a step further and gave middle ratings in some areas because we wanted to make sure it was fair to all members. Then we reviewed each individual evaluation and compiled comments that represented the strengths and improvement recommendations for each of the selected indicators under each standard. We looked for themes based on each indicator and used individual comments to support the themes of strengths and recommendations. The comments were blended together to create a comprehensive paragraph. Each standard section, if you read it, we did it each the same way. So it was consistent where we started with evidence from Dr. Bucky's evaluation for each for his rating, and then we put the school committee comments of strengths and improvements underneath. And the introduction was a summary of the report. So as stated in MSAC evaluating the superintendent document, should a member feel an important comment was left out, they have the opportunity to persuade their fellow committee members to include the comment during the public discussion of the evaluation. So I feel that we can go around and everyone can comment on the evaluation and we can discuss how we want to proceed or not proceed with how people feel.
Well, I appreciate all the work that you and Lisa did. Obviously, I did this last year, and it is a gigantic undertaking that has
Hours of my life are lost.
Yes, and I know despite our best efforts this year, that formatting continued to be a pain. So I appreciate, all the work that went in, and yeah, it's no easy feat to take 5 people's thoughts and meld them into one document that's fair to everybody. So I very much liked the bulleted part of what you and Lisa decided to do this year, based on some of the feedback from last year. I liked that it sort of pointed out strengths and then that it was a very definitive growth areas. So it was easy to see. And I think that the areas of growth were, pretty good in my eyes. I didn't agree with all of them exactly, but obviously it's not my individual summation, it's the committee. So, I thought my own thoughts were represented at points. So I really appreciate all of the work that you guys did.
I mean, thank you for doing this because I think it's a huge amount of work. I also, I don't have too much to add to what Sarah said. I like the format. I appreciate the fairness in kind of figuring out the ratings. Reading through it, I think it's very balanced in terms of, what theme-wise, what Dr. Bucky has achieved this year, he and his team, and, areas for growth and opportunity for next year. So, yeah, I don't have much to add in addition to say anything Sarah did. Just thank you.
Dear Sarah? Sarah, go ahead.
Yes, so I had concerns that my particular voice seemed not expressed or heard. I can't speak to anybody else's voice. I think it's a hard line to walk with, knowing, if this was an appropriate portrayal of everybody without knowing what everybody said. I only know what I said, and I know that I don't feel that this was that this expressed my thoughts. So one concern, for instance, is in the areas that Dr. Bucky was given exemplary performance. In my mind, you know, it's exemplary is something you see with a very seasoned superintendent. It is the level to which all others should strive to accomplish. And I think that it would be very hard for any second, I would venture to say impossible for anyone in a second year position in a job to rate an exemplary rating. So I have concerns that that should only be seen when it's unanimous that everybody rated that area exemplary. So just because, you know, the definition of exemplary. So I had some concerns with an exemplary rating unless it was given unanimously across all 5. And then there was a couple comments that I had felt strongly enough that I had reiterated at several points in my review. I think the most, the one I feel the strongest about was how I wanted it noted in there that I had requested a staff survey to be able to very effectively evaluate the goals of professional leadership, and that request was denied. And I would just ask that be added if it's to the will of the committee, and if it's not, that's to the will of the committee.
Can I comment on that? Sure. I think the staff survey is something that as a committee, we need to speak about. I don't think it has any relevance to the evaluation of Dr. Bucky's performance. That's a conversation we need to have, and it does not belong in his evaluation. It's one we can absolutely have. We should talk about it in our summer retreat, as you know, in terms of how this process lays out going forward next year. In terms of the exemplary, you know, for all the ratings, what we agreed on was that it would be calculated based on the majority. So if we want to change that, we can, but we never discussed or agreed on if it's being exemplary, it's unanimous. So Lisa and Emily followed the process that we laid out last year, the MASC lays out, and that we agreed to follow this year. So I don't think Dr. Bucky should be penalized, or that we should change his evaluation based on things as a committee we have not discussed or agreed.
And I want to be clear that I'm not trying to penalize Dr. Bucky, nor do I feel that not getting an exemplary mark is a penalization in any proficient is proficient. It is not meant to be a penalization at all. And I apologize if I stated that incorrectly. I don't feel my voice was heard in the review or reflected. One concern I do have is, you know, and I don't know what everyone's feeling is, as far as my understanding is after the meeting commenced tonight, or at some point tonight or tomorrow, the individual reviews will be made public. I have not been able to see anybody else's review, just as the public has, and it's just, I'm sure you guys have not seen each other's. So it is hard for me to vote to approve something that is summative without seeing the parts of the sum, if you will. So I would ask that we be able to be given the opportunity, now that we have deliberated on this, and it would not be breaking any open meeting laws, to have a chance to review the individual statements, to look so that when we vote on approving the summative, we all can be voting saying, yes, this is, in my opinion, a true summary of everybody's statement.
So are you implying that it's not a true summary of everybody's statement?
No, I'm not. I'm just, I don't know. I can't say, because I haven't seen everybody's. I've only seen my part, and I don't feel it's reflective of my part, but I haven't seen anybody else's.
This is the process that is laid out by DESE, and we have followed it. And it's the same process that we followed last year, and that we all agreed that we were going to follow this year. As you know, Sarah, we are not allowed to see everybody's individual summary or evaluation prior to meeting, because it would be a violation of open meeting law, which is why nobody's seen it, and why we assigned Lisa and Emily to take the responsibility and the enormous amount of work that it takes to compile this. And as committee members, we all have to show a certain amount of trust and respect to each other, that if we assign someone, or someone volunteers to take that time and do the role, that we trust them to do it to their best and most fair ability. And I, for one, 100% trust and support Emily and Lisa that they have done this in the most fair and comprehensive way possible. For that reason, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to motion that we approve Dr. Bucky's evaluation as it stands.
So Megan has made a motion to approve the evaluation. Can I get a second?
Second for further discussion?
Yes, for sure.
Sure.
Yes.
Right. No, thank you. For the work that goes into, it started with Dr. Bucky's summative, with all of the examples that he put forward. And it was, as I said to someone, it was an eye opener. I think that might have been my wife, talking to her when I was like, wow, it was just like all these things that I'm aware of, but yet there's so much else because it's Dr. Bucky's full-time job. And, we do this as a part-time job to have this refresher and included of the videos to see the little slideshow of all the different events Dr. Bucky attended throughout the year and were, examples of, just all of the things that go on in a district when you have, over 2,600 students. And so I thought, the process clearly is a good opportunity to, look back over the year and review the progress of the superintendent. And we've come to, how should I say it, deal with the format that it's in, and it works. And so, I think in ways, Sarah, there were some things, you're right. For me, I had some areas that were rated a little bit differently, but as an average, the committee average is less than what I put in an area as an example. So I can see that mine was represented in some ways because clearly there are some quotes and comments that were directly from my statement. So I appreciate that because I know what I wrote, and I could see that. And then I'm sure there were a lot of comments that you had to go through that probably we were all saying the same thing, and so you had to find a common theme. And so thank you. Thank you for pulling that together. As far as accepting the document, I don't know what direction we're going in with the vote, but I'll stop in case other people have comments. But I just wanted, one other comment to actually focus on the content of a brief summary while the public might be able to get a copy of it. I just wanted to make a few comments of what's contained in the summary.
Okay,
or of my own comments after everybody else gets a chance to speak.
So I think, the way that I viewed the ratings wasn't sort of that exemplary as the end all be all. These were very specific goals that were set forth. And I guess in the way I always see evaluations is for many of the goals and things that anyone sets for themselves, you can kind of reach those goals, but they're usually an ongoing thing. I think maybe even within education and sort of human service type situations. I don't know. I don't think of exemplary as like a panacea has been reached. So that's how I've kind of processed that. And so I think, I think I did give Dr. Bucky an exemplary or two. I didn't give them lightly for sure. And as far as, I actually have zero desire to see anybody else's individual eval, particularly before the summative, sort of before we discuss the summative in here. I think it would, I don't know, it just, I don't think it would be good for my process in how I approach this. So, I think, again, like I said at the beginning, I think I'm represented. I don't think that my voice is overwhelming in any way, and I think that's the goal of it. So.
Yeah, it's very clear that we're supposed to be evaluating Dr. Bucky on the goals that we set for him at the beginning of the year. And that is what, I used to determine his ratings. Did he meet the goals that we set out for him? And we had very clear goals with very clear actions that needed to be completed in order to meet those goals. And how did he measure up against those? And I think that's represented here. I don't know if it's worthwhile. I know, David, you mentioned kind of calling out some themes, or Emily, if there were themes that are worthwhile mentioning, just to put you right on the spot. But I mean, there were, reading through it, there were themes, like I said, of great work that's been done this year, because there has been a lot of great work, especially in curriculum and instruction, communication. We've done a lot in diversity. The budget obviously was probably one where he got the highest marks, just kind of not only getting up to speed on the process this year, but really taking it to the next step and being very collaborative with the community and the leadership team, and consistent in, what the district needs and how to, communicate that out to the community. And obviously, that will lead to next Tuesday. So there were probably themes on the opportunities to just speak to that.
Yeah, so there was themes for both. So some people's comment maybe was the direction that theme went in, but there was also themes, and a lot of people said the same things about recommendations and improvements for next year. So if it wasn't exactly stated the way that an individual stated it, the theme goes right back to it. And I do want to say that I offered to edit anything that Sarah wanted to hear her voice, because I know it's hard when you are one and a lot of that one out that's different than everybody else. That it was very difficult for us to make sure everyone was heard. And we made such a point about that. We even stated that one person on the committee felt that a lot of progress was necessary. So I just want to say that Sarah declined my offer of making edits. She wanted to bring them here tonight. So I'm happy to talk about it. I don't know if the committee will approve of them, but I was open to doing it and making sure that everyone felt that it was a fair process.
Yeah, and I think my declining it was really about that the conversation needed to happen in an open meeting, that you and I shouldn't work out and edit. I wouldn't expect you to do it with you and Sarah, and that wouldn't, she wouldn't have done that. And I didn't. So that's why I brought, that request that we asked to put in, that I had noted that a few times and had asked that be put in there. Because I did think it was important, because we were evaluating on a leadership goal, that it's really hard to give an effective, in my mind, review of a leadership goal without hearing the people that are getting the leadership. But this forum works well in that I brought that concern. We had a discussion about it. I heard what everyone else had to say, and in response to that, and I think that that's an example of how the committee, a committee should happen. I brought my concern to the committee. We discussed it, and everyone was heard, and we'll move on now.
David, did you want to?
I did just want to offer a couple of highlights from my comments, if I could. And so as part of the, as we go through all the individual ratings, there's the, the last step is we all get this opportunity to do a summary comment. So I'm just going to read a couple of quick paragraphs of mine, if I could. So in Dr. Bucky's summary comments, he started by saying, while we've lived the majority of the last 2 years in a global pandemic with significant amounts of time spent navigating and its impact and damage, I have purposely and intentionally tried to limit including it in my reflections and analysis. I wanted to focus on the determination of our team and the Marblehead community to achieve our goals and move our district from good to great. So I added with that, however, throughout the last 2 years of the pandemic, Dr. Bucky's leadership has been the anchor that's kept our ship from running aground. As we opened our schools last fall, there was optimism that we would be returning to normal. Our students and teachers returned to the classrooms while the administration focused on meeting the individual school needs in a variety of ways. Resources provided a safe, efficient, and effective learning environment across Marblehead Public Schools. As we move through the school year, John and staff continue to make recommendations as needed that eventually led to our current mask optional policies. Dr. Bucky's guidance and efforts throughout the pandemic created stability, focused direction during an extremely challenging time. There were mentions about the budget, and certainly the one, I had a full paragraph here, but the one sentence I'd like to read that I'd also wanted to recognize Dr. Bucky's support for in collaboration with Assistant Superintendent of Finance, Michelle Cresta, that created clarity, balanced budgets, spending accountability that has been lacking for years in the district. And in summary, Dr. Bucky's overall performance this year has been proficient and highlighted by many exemplary achievements. His weekly Good People of Marblehead superintendent updates are informative, transparent, witty, and a true example of his commitment to improving the communications with our Marblehead public school parents. In his very thorough self-assessment, he identified strengths and he also identified weaknesses. And he provided a thoughtful this year as a video. And I encourage people to see that. It expands on the foundation from last year for leading the district out of the pandemic and back to building a culture of high standards. I remain confident that he will continue to be communicative, open in his work with the school committee, be highly visible in Marblehead, and accessible to students, staff, parents, and the community. It's been a pleasure to have worked with him over the past 2 years, and I wish him and the district continued success in the years ahead. Thank you.
Anybody else? We have a motion and it's been seconded.
Can I request, I just pulled mine up here. I did note that there's been a significant amount of community feedback received concerning two-way communication and transparency. And I had asked that a goal be that next year, there would be public forums with a specific topic. And that would be beneficial to Dr. Bucky's ability to communicate with the community or connect with the community.
Yeah, so I think that was in there about increasing copies and forums. I think there was a substantial increase to it this year, especially, the way that MASC has guided us in placing topics on the forums. Just finished 3 of them.
Okay, and then this is one that I feel is really a big priority. Clear long-term strategies to combat learning loss and regression from the pandemic have not been communicated to the community and are needed. I believe this to be an excellent goal for Dr. Bucky in the coming year.
So I can speak to that. So under standard instructional leadership, we talk about the implementation of data collection tools for tracking student achievement is necessary for creating an effective learning path for individual students. So we've done that. And then we are asking that we want to see, we want Dr. Bucky to provide a summarized output and corresponding action plans for the instructional rounds and assessment tools as a focus for the coming year, as well as a performance goal linked to student learning.
Okay.
How that is any different.
I think that learning loss in particular and regression is a very important concern in our community. And I'm not sure that it's been addressed per se this year directly.
Okay, we can consider that for our goals for next year.
Yeah.
Talk about that over the summer.
Yep, absolutely. All right, I will call roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Sarah Fox,
No.
David Harris,
Yes.
Megan Taylor,
Yes.
and Emily Barron. So it's
Sorry,
4 to
Sarah,
1.
can I just ask why you voted no for it? Because everything we just talked about, has been addressed. So I'm just curious why.
It's really the ratings. And there were several times in there that it said that ratings were given unanimously. And I can tell you emphatically that was not my rating and it wasn't unanimous. And it could have been a typo and it could have been something else, but I did have the conversation with Emily, and what she relayed was that, they went with what the majority, if the majority gave someone exemplary, that's what the choice was to go with, and not do an average. Which is, and I'm not here to get into a debate about the procedure, because I think that this summer, whether I'm part of the committee or not, I think to do some more professional development for the committee and to really outline our strategy and have a clear idea might be really helpful. But
But MASC says to go beyond just doing an average and to pick the majority. It's literally stated in there. So we did what
I know that you're supposed to get rid of any outliers, but again, if it,
say that.
I can't speak, I can't. What's very hard for me is, it's hard for me to say that I know that this is reflective of the summary of a part that I have no idea what the parts are. And that's just from a data collection point. I don't know what the parts are, so I can't say that this summarizes it, because I don't know what the parts are, if that makes sense.
Well, so what I would say is you're voting no. So let me think about this. So my thought would be, I know that my parts were represented, so I can vote yes. Sarah knows that her parts were represented, so she can vote yes. Megan and Emily do the same.
Exactly.
And so you are feeling that your comments were not represented, so that's why you're voting no.
Yes. And it's, and
Okay.
if I only see one piece and don't see the rest, it is hard to say if this is from a data collection perspective, if I only see one piece and I don't see that it's reflected in this, and without seeing the other pieces, I just in any fidelity cannot vote that this is reflective. And I think that we're getting in the weeds. We've cast our vote. We've moved on. The vote is carried. It's okay.
I will say one more thing, that, again, thank you, Emily. I can remember how this felt last year, when it felt as though the work that I was tasked with doing with Lisa, was made to seem that it didn't represent the entire committee. And I think that is a reflection on a lack of trust. And I think that's just unfortunate. So
let's just note that wherever it says unanimous, it's actually the majority of the committee.
And that's how a committee works.
Okay?
That's how a
And
committee
we can
works.
just add that note.
And that's completely okay. It is okay for there to be a dissenting voice. It doesn't mean it's oppositional. It just means I'm looking at it from a different point of view and don't feel I have the data I need right now to cast my vote in a different direction. And if I make different after I review. And I apologize if anybody thinks it's an attack or an affront. And I can just say that I didn't have the data to, as David just pointed out, I don't have the data. That he surmised it very well. Thank you.
I hear that as the only way you'll ever approve it is if you do it. So, yeah, sure. No, it's all you next year. All right.
So I think
Sorry. David, what were you saying?
So is the last item to have a motion to approve the contractual increase for Dr. Bucky's
Yes,
pay in 2023?
yes.
Great.
Step.
Well, I would like to make a motion that we approve a 2.5% raise for Dr. Bucky's contract in FY 23.
David has made a motion for 2.5% increase. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
No, I don't second that shit. Don't second that shit. That's fucking
You see?
retarded.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do not unmute yourself.
What? What'd you say?
All right, Sarah, I just made you a co-host as well, so you can unmute yourself, and I don't have to micromanage to that level, which is ridiculous. Hopefully everyone else can act like adults for the rest of the evening. All right, where were we?
Motion approved and seconded for a 2.5% raise.
All right, any comments on that?
I would just ask if there's a potential to table this until we know the outcomes of our overall budget next Tuesday. I would be hesitant to allocate any more funds until we know the full scope of our budget.
Motion been seconded.
Yeah, I
I guess
don't-
that's a comment rather than.
I guess I would amend the motion
Or-
to postpone, I would amend the motion to postpone the vote until the school committee proceeding the ballot vote, so we have the full scope of our budget.
So the motion is that the superintendent be the only employee in the district not to get a raise.
Nope, the motion is to know the full scope of our budget before we allocate any further funding beyond what we passed at town meeting.
We'll let the record show that we passed at town meeting a budget that does have funding to give the superintendent a raise. And he would be the only one without a raise if that motion were to be seconded and approved. So that would be my comment. She's made a motion to amend, I guess. Is there? Going back to the chair, sorry.
Yeah, is there a second to the amendment? Okay, no second to that amendment. So I will move for a vote, a roll call vote. Sarah Gold, yes. Sarah Fox,
No,
David Harris,
Yes.
Megan Taylor, and Emily Barron. Yes. Motion passes 4-1. Thank you, Dr. Bucky, for all of your hard work this year and everything that you've done to move this district forward.
Absolutely.
All right, next up is review of policy FFA memorials. You'll all remember from our previous meeting that Malcolm Paquette came and presented with Principal Bauer a plan for a Forever Fans area outside or kind of right around the entrance to Piper Field area, I guess. So Emily and Dr. Bucky and I looked at the FFA memorials policy because we knew that this has come up a few times that we kind of needed to look at this. This really wasn't representing and reflective of sort of the direction that our district is looking at. So we reviewed a few different school districts' FFA memorials policies, and we settled upon a portion of one of them that we think reflects where the collective heads are at this point. So that is presented to you in the folder this evening. Emily, do you have anything to add before I talk about process?
No, but we did have a pretty extensive conversation about it. Ours was not very elaborate, so we looked at, is this the process that you were talking about? No, okay. So we looked at multiple different school districts and we came up with Stoughton is what we used. And we took a section of theirs and we thought it was a good solution for Marblehead for what has happened in the past and what we hope to happen in the future. And this,
so we've got a couple of decisions. So I do have this marked for a vote this evening, which would be a vote only after a second read because the policy subcommittee is the first read. Then it comes to the school committee twice usually, which is obviously best practice. So I put a vote on it this evening, knowing that this is the final school committee meeting with this school committee. This is not a make or break thing. I will put it on at our meeting for next week when we vote leadership, which we will have, obviously after the election and have at least one new member. So that's the only kind of drawback to pushing it for a week. I do think we should get it done so that, as Muffy talked about, the work that's going to go on over the summer. And so I do want us to keep moving this forward. But again, it's truly the will of the committee here. If it goes till next week, I don't think that that's the end of the earth. Megan?
You know what I'm gonna say.
I do.
I say it like, I feel like I personally have been a real stickler with Dr. Bucky about being consistent in the process we take. And we talked about that at the retreat, especially when it comes to policy, which is one of our biggest responsibilities. So this is not one that has, a make or break immediate need at this point, and I would like us to really kind of have our process and consistently follow our process. It's not to say that I disagree or agree with the policy. I just want to make sure that we, like I said, consistently follow the process that we put in place so that we're doing that across the board with all our processes.
Anyone else that's there? Sarah?
In the past, any memorial needed to be approved by the school committee, but the verbiage here does not require the school committee to approve a memorial, but only to approve the removal of a memorial. I think that it might be appropriate to also have school committee approve memorials as well, if there's no objection to that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. As I was writing it up and making these changes the other day, I noticed that same thing, and I looked back at our current memorials, and it doesn't say it explicitly either. So I'm not opposed at all if we want to add, that approval, any permanent. So let's see, any permanent memorials in existence, and then approval of any memorials be made by a vote of the school committee. Does that sound good, or how do you want to wordsmith that?
Any addition or removal of any permanent memorials requires a school committee vote.
Addition
or removal of a permanent memorial shall require a vote of the school committee. And we might want to remove CD-ROMs. I laughed when I saw that.
I would take that out too. Again, things that we didn't discuss in the subcommittee meetings. As I looked at it, I was like, okay, guess that's staying in. All right. Okay, so we will wait the week. I will make these additional changes. Sorry, David, you're not going to get to vote on this one. And we'll put it back on for next week so that everything is in place for that work to proceed.
Disappointed that shrubs and trees are being discouraged, but I thought, I mean, I think this is a good change, seriously. I mean, to address this, and once again, thanks to Muffy and everything that's being presented to move that effort forward. And you're right, being able to do this next week. It's the will of the committee, but also where it says the request should be adjusted to the administrator of the building, who in consultation with the superintendent will determine the appropriateness. Now, I guess down below, if you're going to say that we're going to vote on it, we're either going to agree or disagree with the appropriateness. Mm-hmm. I suppose in consultation with the superintendent, I don't know, and a representative of the school committee to determine the appropriateness, and then it gets brought forward. But I'm fine leaving it that way. And then when it comes to the committee for approval, like what was presented to us as consulted with Dan and Dr. Bucky, we have the committee that has the ability to vote for it. So
I think that process is that's in place where it's the building.
That wording.
The building administrator who brings it to the superintendent.
Yep.
I think, again, this isn't the first time that.
Exactly what we did.
Right. It's come up with benches, and it's always it's always felt organic and supportive as it's moved through that chain of command and eventually come to us. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. You guys will see it next week. All right. Any subcommittee and liaison updates? And that time of year.
Yep.
All right. So that will move us along to new business. I don't have any new business this evening. Sarah?
I would ask that the school committee, but I actually think it's probably appropriate for the policy subcommittee to look at it first. Review, it's Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 80. And I'm just going to read it. It's brief, I swear. And it states I came across this while, searching different school committee things. Every teacher employed in any public school whose duties commence prior to 12 o'clock noon shall be allowed a 30-minute lunch period between the hours of 10 o'clock in the forenoon and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and shall not be required to perform any duties during their lunch period, provided, however, that the provision in this section shall apply only in the city or town which accepts this section by vote of the school committee. I think it's just a formality that we have never voted to accept this. So I would just like us to follow through on that formality to give our teachers that 30-minute lunch. It's just it's not a policy we have because it requires, it seems silly, but it requires a vote of ours. And I just came across it and I thought it's something I'd like the policy subcommittee to look at adopting.
Okay, that can definitely be done with next session's policy committee. I think that would probably be done in conjunction with looking at language within the contract as well. So, but I know that there's, kind of multiple things that have been kind of discussed about that moving forward. So, yep. Sounds good. All right. Correspondence. So we have 3 pieces of correspondence. One was noted in public comment. First up, I wanted to give everybody a heads up that we won't make any decisions on this week because, again, we'll have a new committee next week. But the MASC and MASS joint conference in the fall, there's a sign up where you are able to get a reduced fee if we sign up, I think, before July something. And so I want us to look at that next week and have people think about whether or not they'd be wanting to go to that, and so that we can purchase things before the rate goes up. So I just wanted to highlight it this evening so that everybody was aware. The other 2 are of concern. They came to me and John, and so I struggled with what to do with them, but I also am not. I don't think it's my job to not put things forward to the full committee. And I wanted them to be entered into correspondence because they do deal with protocols and operating rules. And I want the committee to take note and all focus on our roles and their boundaries. So that's what I have to say about that.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I was really disappointed in what I read in both of those submissions. As members of the school committee, we have very specific and defined roles. As school committee members, what we're responsible for, as we all know, those are determined by state. And we also have operating protocols that as a committee, we create, we vote, and we sign them. And therefore, we are responsible to hold ourselves accountable to live up to those protocols and to adhere by our roles and the behavior that we expect from each other. Our roles are defined so that situations like this do not happen. We have boundaries in which we need to operate. And I personally support our staff, and I want our staff to know that I support them and that I believe in them. And we can't put our staff in this type of situation. In addition, we have to treat each other with respect, and we have to have trust for each other. And those are all outlined in our operating protocols, as are how we treat Dr. Bucky and how we communicate with staff. And we need to follow those. We need to hold ourselves accountable, and we need to hold each other accountable. And I expect that going forward, we all do that.
All right. That moves us to adjournment. So I will adjourn us at 8:21 p.m. Thank you, everyone.